Alright, for this unit we're going to do a participation activity and create a model view controller website using ASP.NET in Visual Studio. So I'm running Visual Studio 2019. I'm going to create a new project. For the template we're going to do a web project in C#. So rather than a console app we're going to do this ASP.NET Core Web Application. And select that. Give it some name. So we're going to do a student club thing. So I'm just going to call this unit for student club. Okay, create that. Now it's going to ask us what kind of a web application we're going to do, and we're going to choose this web application with model view controller setup. So MVC here. And then we're not going to do any authentication. The users won't have to log in to use the website. We won't worry about that. And the rest of this, I'm going to unclick configure for HTTPS. It just adds a little complexity there that we don't need. So it's just unclick that and then create. And then we get a basic project set up. It's a web project, and when we run it, it'll run a limited version of Internet IIS, the information, Microsoft's web server basically, and then it'll open up the web page in Chrome or whatever you have is set as your default web browser here. Now there are three main page or folders here: a model, a view, and a controllers version. And the idea here is that, let me bring up this little diagram. So our data is stored in these data models here, and then our controller can get data or get things from those data models or update those data models, and then the controller will display things in the view, and the user's actions come to the view and get sent to the controller here. And in this case the views are all web pages in HTML here, and then these will be in C#. So let's just look at the basic setup here. To start with, the models, there's really no models. There's just this air view model, but there's no model set up. There is one controller set up by default, the home controller here. And so that is set up, and then there's for views there's a corresponding view. So whenever I have a controller, and there always go with the name, like some name and then controller. So like home controller, there'll be a folder in views with that same name, home, and then there'll be files in there for that. So let's just run this real quick. It should run as is, and it will go to the home control and bring up the index web page for us. So it might take a sec to load up, because again it has to start this web server up. So it'll always still start up a web server, and it'll run a location called localhost. It'll have a different port number each time here, but it'll always be localhost and then some port number. And so this is our default, our starting web page, and then we have a privacy web page we can go to. So again, you can kind of see the structure of this. The host name /home, which is our controller, /privacy is one of the web pages. So that corresponds over here. While it's running, I can't hear. Let's see if I can switch back to the Solution Explorer here. Okay, so under views and home, there's a privacy and an index. An index is the one that is displayed by default if you don't specify one. So going back to our web viewer, oops. So that's our privacy one. If you go back to home, it'll go back here. You can actually, if you typed in index here, it would go up. Oops, not. Yeah, we want to go to the home /index and run that. That'll run this. That's the same as this home view. By default, web pages will open up the index view, and in this case, the home folder is the default folder, and then privacy goes to that privacy page. Again, so they're just mapping to these two different views inside the home directory here. So let's try to create our own controller that just displays like a hello world kind of update. So in the controller, we're going to go and add a controller. Oops, it's running, so I can't do that. Let's stop this. Okay, I'm going to go to controllers, add, and then you can't see it on the screen unfortunately, but it says controllers here, and I'm going to add a controller. So there are different things. We're generally going to work with this model view MVC controllers, and we're just going to start with an empty controller to start with, and we'll talk about some of these later on. So I'm just going to add that. I'm going to give it some name. So we'll just do a hello controller here. Let's see if I can get this on the screen. So it's always some name and then followed by the word controller. So I'm going to say hello controller. I have to get rid of this one here. I don't need that here. So hello controller will be my hello world controller. And again, it's a controller class and it'll be empty to start with. That's why it selected that. So add that. So it'll add a C# file here for the hello controller and open that up. So here's our hello controller, and again there's just one default action here. Every one of these actions is basically a web page, and this is the indexed web page, and it's returning a view. I'm going to not return a view right away. I'm just going to return some content. Actually, I don't think I need. I can say some content, and I'm going to put in some string here. Hello world, and I guess I need a semicolon after that. Okay. Okay, so this isn't actually using a view yet. It's just well, I just want to make sure that this controller will run in the right spot. So I'm going to run this again, and I'm going to remember this is the hello controller, so that'll be important. So I'm going to run this again. Hopefully it'll run a little faster this time. It should start up my web page here. Okay, by default it just opens up the local host. I'm going to go to my hello controller. I'm going to go hello, and again it's just saying hello world, so it's just running this code and displaying whatever that controller sets up there. So again, we always just say we run our locals and then we go slash and then the name of the controller we want to use. So in this case, because I created a controller called hello, it's running that controller. Okay, so I don't really need to do this anymore. I'm actually going to return, let's do a view. It's going to return a view. So a view is just some HTML code that we can return. Now this wasn't HTML code, this was just some text. So I'm going to return some view, it'll generate some HTML code. Now there isn't a view here, so I'm going to create a view here. So I'm going to click on this index, and I'm going to right click and say add view. I'm just going to add an empty view for that. And let's see if I can get this on the screen. Again, I'm going to leave this to be the index view. It has to match the code there. So I'm going to leave that there and say add. Now it should be adding this to the view folder down here, but for some reason it's not. It's adding it up here. So if yours has the same problem, go down to views. I'm going to create a folder. I'm going to add a new folder and call it hello to match our controller name here, and then I'm going to drag this down there. I'm not sure why it's supposed to do that automatically, and I'm not sure. I must be doing something wrong or something like that. But okay, so we have our controllers up here, the hello controller, and our view down here. It has to be in a folder that's the same name as the controller, and then index has to match the name of the method here. So our method is public, and then this is the result, a result class here, and then this is the name of the actual method, and so it's returning that view here. So that's the view it's actually returning. And so if I go into that, if I open up that view, it has some preliminary code here, and I'm just going to ignore that and go after that, and I'm just going to return some HTML. And I'm not going to talk too much about HTML here, but H2 is a heading, and I'm going to just put in a heading and say hello world from view, and then save that. I'm going to make sure my controller is saved and run this again. Okay, I'll wait for this to run. It should pop up my web page in just a sec. Okay, here's my web page, and it's localhost. I'm going to go to the hello controller, and it's saying hello world from the view. So it's running, it's showing that view, it's showing that web page here. So I can go back. Let's stop this. So again, it's running, it's displaying this this index website in HTML. It's actually CIS HTML because we can put some C# stuff in there. Okay, so let's add another method to our hello controller. So I'm back to our hello controller. I have the index method, so that displays an index page. Let's say I want to say have another page. I want to make some hellos from different states. So I'm going to make a Minnesota hello, and I'm going to make a Wisconsin hello here. Okay, so all of these, I'm just going to load up the view. And I'm going to have to add these views for this. So again, I'm going to just go inside the view and choose add view, do an empty view, and add it in. And they have to match. So again, this first one was a Minnesota, just an MN view. So I'm going to call this page just MN here. Okay, and again, it added it up here. I'm going to move it back down here, and I'm going to add another view for Wisconsin. So I'm just going to go here, and again, I can actually just copy this. I have this Minnesota view. I can just duplicate that, and if I want, and set that up, or else I can go back here and do this Wisconsin view. Add to view. Okay, and then I'm going to change, do similar to what I had in the first one, and then the Minnesota view after this C# preliminary stuff, which we're not going to really talk about. I'm going to say hello world from, and then this one is say Minnesota, and then the Wisconsin one will say hello world from Wisconsin. Save those. So now, assuming I save everything and run this again, I should be able to look at these different views. So once my web page is, again, I have to go to the hello area, and that will run the index view. I have to go to hello and then go to Minnesota to see the Minnesota one, or Wisconsin to see the Wisconsin one. Now, why didn't Wisconsin work? So it's looking for views, hello, Wisconsin, and then one of those things, and it's not finding it. Let's see. Oh, the reason again is because I didn't move it. It was still created up here, and it needed to be down here where it was looking. So we'll move it down there, and then it would work. Okay, now let's go back to our code a little bit in our controller. When we run a view, by default it runs this index view, or the name of the view, and we can actually put that in there. We can type in Minnesota if we want, and that will run the Minnesota view. And sometimes we could change the name of the view might be slightly different than this code here. And this code here will matches the web page we bring up and do. So we can actually specify the view here in a little bit. We're going to have to specify this so that we can add some additional parameters after that. And again, this default one is the index view. We'll bring up this one. So you can specify that. So that's the basic, I guess, setup for the controllers. Now, I'll just warn you is that now there is some framework here that runs as far as a menu system, and we're not modifying that, and that's why when you run this, you won't see hello as one of the menu options. So there's this privacy and home, and hello is not here by default because we added it in here, and there's this menu system that's plugged in here, and that's not there. So that's why we have to actually type in hello. We have to type in the name of the controller that we're running here. If you did want to change that menu system, and we're not going to, under the shared folder here is this view imports, I think. No, let's try view start. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't open up the shared folder. Yes, it's just in the layout folder. And then there, it creates the different menu systems here for home and privacy setup. So, but we're not going to play with that. That's not important. Okay, so that's lets you create a simple hello world view. The next thing we're going to do is, now we didn't create any data models here. We only used views and model views, and we didn't use not models. We used controllers and views. So we use controllers and views, but no data models. So the next thing we're going to do is create a data model for students.